Welcome back. Following last night's debate, a lot of talk about it today. Joining us this morning is Matthew Martin from the Kern County Republicans and Christian Romo from the Kern County Central Committee to discuss the performances of President Trump and Joe Biden in last night's debate. Thank you guys so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, absolutely. So let's start off, first of all, with the Zoom feature, some technical things that were going on last night. How do you think that the mute played a role in last night's debate? Christian, we'll start with you. Go ahead.
I think we were able to have an actual debate. I think that's the biggest takeaway, is that, both candidates were able to make their case. We got to hear from each of them. There was responses from each of them. I think this was a real debate, which is sad to say in 2020 in America that we were excited to watch a real debate. But when you take away the fireworks and the reality TV show part of it, I think we were able to hear from each of the candidates and they made their case on who's the better candidate.
Matt, your thoughts on that?
Well, I think that the moderator, Kristen, did a much better job of giving both candidates a fair amount of time. And I think that on top of that, they both were respectful with each other, with or without a mute button.
So how do you compare last night's debate to their first one? Obviously, there were only two rather than the three that were scheduled. So of those two, there are obviously very stark differences. How do you compare those, Christian?
As a political junkie, I like to hear the actual discourse and the disagreements we have and the real issues. I think Americans were glad that they could actually let their children watch this debate. I think we spoke issues. And, when you take away Trump's ability to, be a bully and be a fearmonger, then you kind of get to the sources of, does he know what he's talking about? Does he know and have a clear plan on how to attack a coronavirus and how to get our country back on the right course? And that's no. And I think Joe Biden did a good job at being able to connect with the American people and really, talk to them, although not to face, but, through the camera and directly into the homes of millions of Americans.
Matt, how do you compare last night's debate to their first?
Well, I think it was good. What we saw last night was honesty from the former vice president. As he said, as Donald Trump said, wake up, Pennsylvania, Texas. Look, we saw Joe Biden admit point blank, finally, something he's been saying for months, that he wants to get rid of the fossil fuel industry and get rid of the oil industry. And as you know, Kern County, this is our bread and butter right here. And this is, it was incredible to see that real honesty. Also, looking at the environment, we see that, carbon emissions that are 35-year low under this president, and we've only just begun. So if Joe Biden becomes president, the oil industry is out of here, and I guess we'll all be driving $80,000 Teslas in a few years. And I don't think the subsidies near going to cut the cost of the overage there for middle-class Americans, certainly not for Kern County. But I thought they did a great job, and the president did a great job laying out what he's done and what he wants to do next. 7.5 million new jobs in his first term, and I think we're going to see it grow from there.
Matt, I'm curious, what do you think were the strongest points that came out of last night for even undecided voters? We know that many people have already cast their ballots, but for the few that maybe were using last night's debate to decide who they're going to vote for, what were the strongest points from both candidates last night?
Well, I think that from the president's perspective, he talked about his record on jobs. He talked about the wage growth that we've seen. We talked about the lowest unemployment for Hispanics and Black Americans. From Joe Biden's perspective, I thought he did a good job laying out some of the policies, the Obama administration, and where he'd like to go from there and his experience and the Senate. And of course, as a vice president, that's a few examples.
Christian, your thoughts on that, and also if you think there were any missed opportunities from both candidates last night?
What I really appreciated from both candidates, and I know this is probably trickier for President Trump, is that they were able to listen to each other. Obviously, they don't agree on much, but they were able to listen to each other, and that's what the country needs right now. We might not always agree politically, but we need to listen to each other. I think Joe Biden made a good case that our approach on combating coronavirus, that's the number one topic on everyone's mind right now, getting this country back open. The president has failed. He knew about this in January, didn't really take action. We need to work on, rebuilding this country. And it was even broken before coronavirus. The president claims the economy was great, but it collapsed in the first couple of weeks of the coronavirus. So that's not a really sturdy economy. I think Vice President Biden made some good points on what and was clear on what his actual plan for healthcare is in this country. It's not socialized medicine. It gives private and public options. And I think he was able to lay that out more clearly because they were able to talk and listen to each other this time.
So that was the second and final debate. We're just over a week away from the election now. Is there anything that the candidates need to do now or focus on, especially ahead of the election? Matt, what do you think?
I think if the president continues to focus on his track record, Christian, you mentioned there on the Affordable Care Act, but look, this was a bill that was sold to the American people, and it only covered, 20 million Americans today are on that bill, or on that plan. That's only 6.2% of the American people. And so I think that the president's, record and what he wants to do with pre-existing conditions and keep that there and lower the cost of health care. California, 44% premiums are up in the last 5 years. If he focuses on his record and wage growth over 5% in 3 years, if he focuses on those things and being there for the American people and getting middle class America back to work with bigger tax cuts, I think that's what he should focus on to continue 4 more years in the White House.
Christian, what do you think Biden needs to focus on in this next week?
Well, we know that early voting is up probably 400% across the country. So many people have already actually counted their ballot or casted their ballots. I think what Joe Biden needs to do to connect to the people who really either haven't made a choice or haven't voted early is to go back to the roots of the Democratic Party. We're about living wage jobs. We're about equality and freedom for all people, no matter who you are. And I think he needs to really resonate with the soul of America. I think what we are missing and what we yearn for is that civility. And, President Trump, he just hasn't brought us together. He's actually divided us more than any other president in this nation, in the history of this nation. He says that he wants to be like Abraham Lincoln. Well, he needs to take a quote from his speech and, know that a house divided cannot stand. And that's true. And we need to unite. And I think President Biden, or Vice President Biden, soon to be President Biden, is the one who could do that.
All right. Matthew Martin from the Kern County Republicans and Christian Romo from the Kern County Central Committee. Thank you both so much for joining us this morning. We'll post this full interview to our website, turnto23.com. Thanks again.
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
All right. Let's bring in Chief